Hi friends, hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello, hi, and welcome to the channel. Today's video. This video is gonna be just like a little bit different than my normal videos. I am in a ranting position. I have a desk that I can bang on. And that is because today is going to be a little bit of a rant. And it's also gonna be kind of steering away from more of my normal topics. I feel like normally I talk about a lot of like celebrity and like YouTuber culture and stuff like that. But today's video is purely for me. This video is for me. I wanted to rant about this. I've wanted to rant about this for years. And I finally have decided that I'm going to do it. I don't know if any of you are gonna care about this topic. However, if you do, let me know so I don't feel crazy, because I have been sucked into the world of Birkins. No, this is not a Birkin unboxing. No, I did not buy a Birkin handbag. However, I just want to talk about the absolute lunacy that is the Hermes Birkin. Now, a little backstory. A few years ago, I was just perusing YouTube and I saw this girl. I will post a picture of her here. I think here it was Mel in Melbourne. I saw her unboxing a Birkin bag and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I think the only reason I knew about Birkin bags is because, and if you're a theater kid, you'll get this. If you're not, sorry, but in Legally Blonde the musical, the mother in one of the songs of Elle Woods, instead of trying to get her to go to law school, she's like, how about a Birkin bag? And I never knew what that meant. So I was like, oh, Birkin bag, what's this? I watched this video and fell down a rabbit hole. I had no idea about the world of Hermes. I had no idea about the world of Birkins. I had not a clue what any of this was about until watching this video, and then I absolutely started spiraling and consuming all of the information I possibly could on this bag, this brand, why it was $12,000, why so many people wanted to buy it. A few years ago, I made a video talking about the normalization of luxury fashion, and I've also made a couple videos since then talking about flex culture, and I think that this video is really just building off of those. If you want to know my thoughts on sort of the way that brands use influencers as a way to normalize like $3,000 handbags, you can go watch that video. Or if you want to know my thoughts on flex culture, spoiler alert, I don't really like it. But before we sort of dive into the history of Hermes, I think that what's most interesting about this brand is that they don't really use any of the same tactics. For example, Gucci and Louis Vuitton heavily work with influencers. They heavily promote their stuff as like being for the everyday person, the average person. They sort of make their bags something that they want people that are just like normal everyday people to aspire to owning, which is problematic in its own sense. But Hermes takes a very different approach where they don't want you to buy their bags if you're not incredibly wealthy. They don't want you to like save up and buy one of their bags. They don't want the average everyday person wearing their handbags or their clothing. And I think that is fascinating. So if you are interested in learning about one of the most difficult and hard to get status symbols in the world, keep watching. First, I think it'd be a really good idea to just give you a brief little rundown on what Hermes as a brand actually is. Because if you're like me, clicking on this video, like when I did a few years ago, you know absolutely nothing about this brand and you know absolutely nothing about the bags that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So I just wanted to give a brief little sort of like history lesson. History lessons with Smokey Glow. I'm really channeling Hot Mode in this video. He has some, if you're interested in like luxury fashion stuff, he does some really, really great deep dives into luxury fashion brands. That's not really what this is. This is just kind of an overview. But I know that Luke does a ton of fantastic luxury deep dives. So if you're like curious about all of this, definitely go check out his channel. Also, I just want to give a brief preface that Hermes is a French brand and a lot of the names that I'm going to have to say for this video are French names. I have looked up how to pronounce each and every name and each and every word that I didn't know. However, if I do still mess it up, I apologize. I did try my best to make sure that I was pronouncing everything correctly. So just want to give that disclaimer first off. Now, Hermes actually started in 1837. It was founded by a man named Thierry right? Hermes. We're coming up on 200 years of Hermes. They basically just made high quality harnesses for horses, for carriages, and they started very quickly sort of catering to the French elite. Now, the really interesting thing I found out about Hermes while I was researching for this video was they actually maintained being a family owned and operated brand. Like this business stayed in the family for almost 170 years. It wasn't until 2005 that a direct descendant of Thierry did not take over the brand. So just know that everybody I'm kind of mentioning offhandedly here, they're all direct descendants from him. So this was a family owned business for a very long time. We're kind of going to skip a few generations because the first 2 to 3 generations of the Hermeses, I don't know if that's the right way to put that. The first 2 to 3 generations of this family, let's say that, definitely kept things very similar to how the initial founder meant for it to be. So it was really focused on horses and just making high quality leather goods for horses. By 1914, all of this hard work had paid off. They were definitely the premier sort of luxury harness brand in France and also just all throughout Europe. However, in 1918, the brand decided to branch out and start creating clothing on top of harnesses. And actually, one of the biggest ways that Hermes stood out initially with their clothing pieces was that the zipper, like literally a zipper. I had to Google this because I was like, wait, when was the zipper invented? I thought it was sooner, but I guess the zipper was invented in 1914. And Hermes got the exclusive rights to actually use this new thing called a zipper in one of their original jackets, which made the jacket incredibly unique and a very different piece. And also, I think, contributed to this idea that Hermes was sort of a status symbol. Obviously, their clothing was priced really high for the time, and their reason for that was because they had this new material and this new thing that was very exclusive to the brand and you could only get through the brand. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Hermes actually continued to expand. So they started making more clothing, they started making women's handbags, and on top of that, they started expanding locations past France and started opening locations in the United States. It was during this time that Hermes also started creating their very, very famous silk scarves. These scarves are still a really hot commodity and a really big deal. According to a lot of articles I read, these scarves were sort of a staple in very high society French culture and were definitely viewed as a status symbol if you had an Hermes scarf. And a lot of the credit for this sort of boom of the brand is credited to Amélie Hermes, who was basically the one who sort of brought Hermes away from just doing horse stuff and also brought them into the women and men's luxury fashion market. It was one of the people who was a part of creating the Kelly bag, which is kind of in align with the Birkin. It's one of Hermes's more very popular bags. We're not going to talk about the Kelly bag in this video, but basically everything I say about the Birkin is also applicable to the Kelly bag. And by the 1980s and 1990s, Hermes was booming. They were doing fantastic. Their luxury fragrance line had really taken off. Their handbags had become a status symbol and a staple. And they also started putting a lot more emphasis on ready-to-wear fashion instead of just sort of couture fashion, which really helped the brand because people were buying clothing from them that they wanted to wear every day instead of just coming to them if they had a special occasion. And I think that this generated more revenue and more profitability for the brand. Like I said, the brand was taken over by someone in 2005 who was not a direct descendant of Mr. Hermes, and that was Patrick Thomas. But by the time Patrick took over the brand, it was already a luxury staple. They continually outperform numbers-wise to other luxury brand competitors and also have consistent monetary growth over the years. The only dip they've had in monetary growth was in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic, but I feel like that's kind of a given for most brands, not even just like luxury brands. That's kind of a given across the board that a lot of brands struggled in 2020. However, from the years of like 2017 to 2021, the brand just keeps making more and more money and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now they're really viewed as one of the more exclusive luxury brands on the market. So that's sort of a brief, very brief. And when I'm telling you there's so much more you could dive into here, there really is. But that is a very brief rundown of Hermes and the history of Hermes. Now I want to talk about what brought me to this video, what brought you to this video, and that is the Birkin bag. So what is a Birkin bag? I'm glad you asked. Here's a brief rundown of the bag. I got way too into this script, full transparency. I was just like fucking vibing, learning about all this stuff. In the 80s, when Hermes was led by Jean-Louis Dumas, he was on a plane with an actress named Jane Birkin. Now, the story goes, nobody knows if this is like fully 100% real, but it does seem like this is basically what happened. Jane Birkin was traveling with a straw basket, and while she was putting putting this straw basket in the overhead compartment of her airplane, all of her belongings fell out. And she started just complaining to Jean-Louis, basically just saying that she wished she had a bag that was perfect for weekends and travel, that was in a leather option, but unfortunately that bag just didn't exist for her. So she carried this straw basket, but the problem was things fell out, things got cluttered, and she just didn't have a good option for traveling. While the two were on the flight, they basically just talked about what Jane's sort of dream ideal bag would be, what kind of pockets it would have, what kind of straps it would have, just everything about this bag they sort of talked about, and he was sort of sketching things while she was talking. Soon after that, he showed up at her front door. Literally, this is how the story goes. He showed up at her front door with a Birkin bag and named the bag after her because she was the inspiration for this bag. Now, the funniest part about this story to me that I learned while I was researching was that Jane Birkin actually fucking hates the Birkin bag, which I think is so funny. It's literally named after her. People view it as like the most iconic, incredible bag ever created. Like luxury fashion lovers lust after it. But Jane Birkin herself hates the bag. And her reason for hating the bag is because the initial reason of why it was created for her, which was to carry all of her stuff, the bag couldn't do that. It couldn't carry all of her stuff. She literally joked that if she had continued to carry the bag with all of her belongings in it, she would have needed surgery on her shoulder because the bag was way too heavy and did not have enough support in the straps to carry large quantities of things. So I just think it's really funny that the whole point of this being made was to carry a ton of stuff and have like a weekend bag. And that's not even possible with this bag. Regardless of how Jane Birkin feels about the bag, this bag has gone on to be just the ultimate status symbol for the wealthy, especially the wealthy that care about flexing. I do feel like there's different kinds of wealthy. I don't love the phrase like, oh, you know, money talks, wealth whispers. I know a lot of very I don't know them, I've seen them. There's a lot of actually legitimately very wealthy people who give a fuck about things like Birkins, and then there's people that's not. I don't think it's about the amount of money you have that shows whether you care about this type of stuff or not. I think it's whether you care about the flex or whether you don't care about the flex. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. And also, this bag is regarded as one of the most expensive handbags in the world. Let's dive into that because I'm sure you're hearing all of this and you've seen the pictures, I'm sure, in the videos I've shown of a Birkin bag, and you're like, Hannah, why are you talking about this bag? How much could it actually cost? Well, let me tell you. I pulled up the Birkin bag prices over the years. When the bag was originally created in the 1980s, the bag retailed for $2,000. Which is a fuck ton of money, mind you, especially for the 80s. That is like a crazy amount of money to be spending on a handbag in the 1980s. Like, that is a fuck ton of money. However, $2,000 now seems like pennies compared to what these bags go for in 2022. By 1990, they raised the price to $2,750 for a bag. And then in 2000, basically every 10 years, they had a price increase. 2000, they raised it to $4,000 a bag, which again, you're hearing that and you're like, wow, that is an insane amount of money for a handbag. Like, that is craziness. But wait, there's more, because in 2014, they did their final price increase for now, and they made the bag $11,000 to $12,000 depending on the size and type of leather that you get. $11,000 to $12,000 is how much these bags cost retail. I'm sorry, that's how much my master's degree is costing me. I do want to make a note here that I tried really hard to find how much these bags actually cost to make because I was really curious about the profit margins that they had here. While obviously all things adjust for inflation, except for the American federal minimum wage, while of course all things adjust for inflation, it would make sense for the bag to get like a little bit more expensive over the years. Prices of the products increased, the price to make the bag probably increased, but in just 30 years for the bag to go from $2,000 to $12,000, I was very confused by that. It's not like a normal amount of inflation price hiking. And basically I couldn't find any reputable sources that tell you how much it costs to actually make the bag. Just doesn't exist. It makes a lot of sense. Like, they don't want you to know how much this bag actually costs to make, because then you'd probably be questioning the retail price that you are paying. Mind you, I want everyone to keep in mind, this is just the retail prices. We're gonna get into the resale prices in a minute, okay? You think $12,000 $2,000 is bad. If you can buy it at an Hermes store, you're getting a fucking bargain, okay? Wait for it. However, based on a lot of rumors that I read, I cannot confirm this to be true, but I thought I'd throw it in. It's estimated that each Birkin costs about $800 to make. And I think what's really important to talk about here is why are the Birkins so expensive? Why did they start so expensive? Why did they become even more expensive as time went on? Whether we like it or not, there is value that is put on to brands. And with Hermes, there is definitely sort of an inflated value in the brand simply because of the name. People are buying these Birkin bags and spending tens of thousands of dollars on Birkin bags for the name. We can talk about the quality of the leathers they use or how they're handmade and hand stitched and how they're really well crafted. It doesn't matter because there are tons of brands that you can buy from for way less money. Even if you still want to be bougie and you want to spend like $1,200 on a bag or whatever, like, and you want like a really well-made bag for like $1,200, something like that. No amount of quality justifies a like $10,000 to $15,000 retail handbag. Like there's no amount of quality that justifies that. The literal only reason that people buy it and people are buying it is so they can have that name brand recognition. To a lot of people, especially in the luxury and designer world and in like the social status world, designer brands mean everything and name means everything. So the main reason that this bag is worth the money to so many people is purely because it's an Hermes bag. Like that is the reason, that is the value. The value is in having this bag. Now, Hermes is not going to come out and say that. They're not going to be like, you buy the bag because it has our name on it. So their reasoning for the price point is that number one, the design of the bag having so many different pockets and compartments and other things like that. It's basically just like a tote bag with a bunch of zippers. They claim that because of the design, it adds a lot of value because you can store a lot of stuff in it, which like, okay. They do also discuss how each bag is handmade and hand sewn, which obviously does add value to a bag. And I'm actually not disputing that. I do think that if all the bags are genuinely hand stitched, that does add a certain level of value because somebody is hand making this bag, custom making it just for you. Do I think that makes it worth $14,000? Fuck no. However, I can understand how that does add value to the bag that has been handmade and hand stitched. The other reason that people think Hermes bags are so expensive is because of the leathers that they choose to use. They use a lot of fine leathers. While some leathers are more expensive than others, leather as a material is a lot more expensive and is more expensive to source, more expensive to use, more expensive to work with. So that does add value that you are getting a leather piece. However, a lot of brands do that. Like a lot of brands make leather bags. A lot of brands make high quality bags. I don't know a lot of brands that hand stitch their own bags. So that is kind of the one up that Hermes does have. But a lot of other brands have similar looks to bags, have similar quality of bags. They are not priced so high. So what makes Hermes so different? And this is where we get into the main point of the video, which is talking about why Birkin bags are so exclusive. I know I've thrown around the term exclusive a lot in this video. Like I've been like, oh, it's a really exclusive bag. And I know I've been like, oh, wait until we talk about sort of the aftermarket value. But the reason these bags are so sought after is not a coincidence. This is done by design. Hermes actively goes out of its way to make the bags difficult and hard to get. Unlike pretty much all other luxury fashion stores or even just stores in general, you cannot just walk into an Hermes and be like, hello, I would like a Birkin bag. Here's $12,000, a piece of my soul and the bag, and I'm good to go. You can't do that. You don't just have Birkin bags sitting around for people to buy from. You don't get to choose the color or the size or the hardware color that you want on the bag. You can't just walk in and like pick from a selection. You can't walk in and see one and try one on. That's not how it works. If you were to go into say like a Gucci and you were like, I would like a Gucci Marmont bag, they would wrap one up for you immediately and you would be on your way. If you went to Louis Vuitton and you said, I would like a Louis Vuitton Neverfull, they would pull one out of a drawer, wrap it up for you, and you would be on your way. Hermes does not work like that. I should preface this by saying, it's not that they don't work like that with other things, it's only with the Birkin and the Kelly bag that they are like this about. How you get an Hermes Birkin is actually not really known. Because you can't go into to the store and just buy one whenever you want, there's a lot of ways that people go about trying to receive a Birkin bag. One of the biggest ways that people go about trying to receive a Birkin bag is by going into the store and forming a sort of relationship with a sales associate. So the people that work at Hermes are called sales associates. They basically help you find luxury items, they source things for you, whatever. And a lot of people think that the best way to getting a Birkin is to pick a sales associate and stick with that person. And even though it might take you upwards of like 3 years to get a Birkin bag, if you stick with them and you stick with this sales associate and you buy everything through them and you're loyal to this one person, then they might be able to eventually source you a Birkin bag. The other theory that floats around is that if you spend upwards of $100,000 on other shit that isn't a Birkin bag, so if you go in and you buy like a blanket and a belt and a fucking pair of shoes, that's all gonna add up over the years. And once you hit the $100,000 mark, that is when you are allowed to buy a Birkin. Other people take their chances and just go into Hermes and give Hermes their wish list. They write down their preferences of what they would like in a Birkin bag, and then they wait, again, sometimes years to be called up to say that their Birkin bag is ready and available for them and they can come pick it up. Do they get to see the bag before they go in to actually buy it? No. Do they get to pick the exact color they want? No. Do they get to pick the exact size they want or the exact preference they want? No. You have preferences, plural. You give them a list of multiple options you'd be willing to accept, and then you take it. And that's not even the nuttiest part to me, because you hear all that and you're like, well, that's a lot. Like, to have to basically beg and wait and still not get exactly what you want for like 15 grand is craziness. However, it doesn't stop there, because some people don't want to wait years, right? Which is understandable. You want a bag, you want a bag. Like, you don't want to wait years. Some people don't want to spend $100,000 to spend 15K. Like, some people don't want to do that. So what they do, if they still want to buy directly from Hermes, brand new, is fly to Paris. I am not judging the people who do this. I want to make that very clear. I'm just like in awe at the lengths that people are willing to go to get this bag that to me doesn't even seem that remarkable. I have a story about how I held a Birkin at the end of this video, so if you want to know my thoughts on the Birkin bag, just having seen it, I'll let you know. What people do is they literally get on flights to Paris, okay? They land in Paris, and the sole reason they go on the trip is to get a Birkin bag. Now, the way that Hermes works in Paris is there are more Birkins at this store, and I guess out of all of the Hermes stores in the world, this is the one where you have the chance of getting offered a Birkin the same day that you go in. Like, they just have more, it's their flagship store, so that's their OG original store, and that's why you have more of a chance. However, how this store operates and works is that you can't just show up to the store and be like, hello, I'd like a Birkin. That's not how it works either. You have to, the night before, go online and make an appointment with a sales associate for a bag. These appointments fill up very quickly and fill up every day. So people will fly to Paris with no appointment at the Hermes store and just pray and hope that they can get an appointment. And sometimes they don't. I watched a video of a girl who flew to Paris. She didn't even get an appointment. She didn't even get to walk into the store. She flew all the way to Paris to get a Birkin. She didn't even walk into the store because she couldn't get an appointment to buy a Birkin bag. Now, if you are lucky enough to fly all the way to Paris and then get an appointment with an Hermes sales associate, what ends up happening is you go in and you essentially get interviewed for if they think you are worthy enough to get a bag. You have to dress, it's literally a job interview for a $10,000 handbag. I can't wrap my head around it. You walk in and they basically deem and are trained to deem if you are going to resell the bag, if you're going to represent the brand well. I don't know. They're trained in all this crazy stuff, and they ask you a series of questions about the bag. They ask you what kind of bag you want. They ask you what colors you would be interested in, what sizes you would be interested in, what sort of colors of hardware or metals you would be interested in, if you want something special, whatever. That's what they ask you. They ask you all these different questions. They basically interview you. People have said that if you're overweight, you don't have a chance of getting a bag. If you are anything but white, you don't have a really good chance of getting a bag. People People have said if you don't wear designer clothes to your interview, you're not going to get a bag. There's all of this sort of prejudice that happens at the Hermes Paris store that involves like you getting a bag or not getting a bag. So then if you fly to Paris, get lucky enough to get an appointment and pass the interview, they offer you a Birkin. And this is where Hermes really like gets people, is because they make it seem like it's the highest honor in the world to be offered a Birkin bag. They literally call it offering you a bag. They're like, we're doing you the favor and offering you a bag. Usually what they'll do is take you into a little like back private room away from everyone else to make you feel exclusive and special, and they will take out a bag and they will offer it to you. The craziest part is, and I'm sure some people do turn down bags, like I'm sure that if they pull out a color you didn't want or whatever, I know that some people do turn down bags, I'm sure. However, most people, especially people that are really into this whole Birkin thing, which if you literally flew to Paris to get the bag, you're obviously really into the whole Birkin thing. Most people talk about and say that they feel like they literally cannot say no to this bag because they think if they ever say no, it'll be documented on their account and then they will never be offered one ever again. I'm not saying I feel bad for these people. I don't feel bad that you've been offered a $15,000 bag and you're like, yeah, it's not exactly what I wanted, but sure. Like, I don't feel bad. However, I just think the way Hermes goes about doing this is so fucking manipulative and weird. So you get offered the bag, even if it's not the exact size you wanted or the hardware you wanted or the color you wanted. Most people still say yes. They say yes to a bag that is not 1,000,000,000% perfect, that is $15,000. They pay for the bag, they wrap it up, and then they take it home. And that's that on that. So that's how you like literally have to get a Birkin. It's not easy. It's a very hard process. And that I think too adds into the sort of status symbol of the bag. I think because it takes so much work and effort in order to get a bag in the first place, it gives the bag this sort of like inflated sense of purpose. Like it makes it seem like the bag is so much more important and cool than it actually is. And I think the even crazier part about all of this is we're not even done yet because we still haven't talked about the resale value of Birkins. So because of this whole process, and because Birkins are so hard to get, and because getting them from Hermes is the equivalent of like selling your soul to the devil, because of all of that, the bags resell for crazy amount. Buying a Birkin bag has been equated to being more profitable than like buying and flipping a home. The value of Birkin bags only go up, and the resale value of the bag, the second you bring it out of the store, unlike literally every other luxury bag you could buy. Most other luxury bags you buy, unless it's something really limited edition, once you walk out of that store, that bag is not valuable anymore. Like the price goes down on the bag pretty quickly. However, with Birkins, when you buy those bags, the second you walk out of the store, the value increases by like $10,000. The average resale price of a Birkin bag is anywhere from $35,000 to $250,000 for an Hermes Birkin bag. If you have just like a classic, more basic, everyday black one, it's gonna be a lot less. But if you have a fun, colorful bag, if you have a bag that has a unique leather, like an ostrich leather or the Himalayan Birkin, which is the $250,000 Birkin, if you have any of those, the resale value on those is fucking crazy. So a lot of people end up just skipping the whole Hermes process to begin with and buy their bags directly from reputable resellers who sometimes triple the price of the original bag just for the convenience of getting to pick exactly what color you want and exactly what size you want. I think the even crazier thing about Hermes is that you have brands like, Balenciaga heavily works with the Kardashians, Louis Vuitton works with a ton of influencers. They send them all of their new collections. Hermes does not do that. Even the Kardashians, you could be Kim Kardashian, Kris Jenner, and walk into an Hermes and they will not give you a Birkin. Everybody has like a 2 Birkin per year limit because of resellers, and there are no exceptions. You could be Queen fucking Elizabeth and you could walk in and want a Birkin bag and they are not going to give that to you. Which means that most of these celebrities and influencers and whatever famous people you see that have Birkin bags that are wearing them, 99% of them probably bought those from resellers for like triple the price of what the bag was worth. And honestly, I don't even blame people for buying these bags to resell. Like, even though I think the whole system is kind of gross and just like bizarre, I don't blame people for doing it, because if you can buy Birkin bags and you can resell them for that much of a profit, I get why people do it. Like, there is, as much as I don't like it, there is a market for people to do that. It's just bonkers to think about the fact that people are so obsessed with the status symbol and the flex of having an Hermes Birkin bag that they are willing to pay that much money. And like I mentioned kind of previously, I've actually seen a Birkin in person, which a lot of people don't, but when I was in Chicago, there is a store called The Real, which is actually an online retailer too. This video is not sponsored by them. I feel like it's starting to sound like it's sponsored. It's not. But there's an online store called The Real, and you can basically sell and buy luxury goods on their site, and they have a lot of Birkin bags. I didn't realize this, but when I was in Chicago, I saw that they had a brick and mortar store. So I went in just to like look around because I'd heard about them through YouTube, was interested to see what they had. And they had like 10 or 15 Birkin bags. And I was like, holy shit, there's a Birkin bag right in front of me. Like I was flabbergasted because I never thought that I would see one of those in real life or in person, because the way it's been portrayed to me online, basically the equivalent of seeing a fucking unicorn. So I was like, holy shit, that's a Birkin bag. I was with my mom. I was like, Mom, that's a Birkin bag. She's like, what is that? I have no idea what that means. So I asked the lady if I could hold it. I was not going to buy this bag. I think she might have thought I was going to, because I was like, oh my God, I love the color. There's no way in fuck. I can't afford that bag. Like, purely point blank, even if I like really wanted it, I can't afford a $15,000 handbag. It's not happening for me. Okay. That's not my journey. However, I held the bag and it was remarkably boring. I was so expecting it to be like, because everybody always talks about, they're like, oh my God, it's so well made. It's so well put together. The leathers are just incredible. They're beautiful. It's so handcrafted. It's so easy to wear. It's like the most beautiful handbag you'll ever see in your entire life. It wasn't. It was just like a basic tote handbag. There was nothing special to it. It wasn't particularly structured. It wasn't particularly good. The color of the one I looked at was very pretty. It was like a very pretty blue color, and it was remarkably uninteresting. And I realized in that moment when I was holding this fucking $15,000 handbag, I realized in that moment that the only reason I thought this bag was going to be so special is because everybody tells me it's going to be so special because of the exclusivity of the bag. The only reason when I saw them, I even got a little excited, was because I thought that I was never going to get to see or hold one in my entire life, because it was such an exclusive thing. These bags are only meant for the uber wealthy and the uber rich. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting a hold one. It wasn't even good. Also, just for all my plus size there, if you were considering buying a Birkin bag, don't. It literally didn't fit over my wrist. I don't have particularly chunky wrists, but I am a plus size woman. Didn't even fit over my fucking wrist, the little loop-de-loop holes. So it's like one of the most impractical bags I've ever seen in my life. I've ranted for too long. I think my final thoughts on this topic, and kind of going back to what I just talked about with like seeing the bag in person, it's remarkably unremarkable when you see the bag in person. And I think that's the point. I think going back to the whole concept of like, well, money talk, wealth whispers, this bag isn't heavily branded. It's not, it doesn't have the Hermes logo all over it. The Hermes logo is on it, but it's incredibly tiny. And it's one of those things where wearing one, I would imagine, makes you feel like you're a part of this sort of secret Birkin club. Like, only people that know. Only people that recognize the bag just based on what it looks like recognize the bag. And they're a part of this like elite private society of people who know and understand what a Birkin is and care about what a Birkin is. I think it being so remarkably unremarkable is part of why really rich people and people who are really into the flex culture aspect of it love it, because it's not an obvious flex. It's a very subtle flex, but when people do notice it, it's a big fucking deal. I also think, and this is fucked up, but it's true, I think that really, really rich people like the fact that this is a bag that most people cannot afford and will never be able to afford. I think that the whole point of luxury fashion to begin with, and I have mixed feelings about this because I actually own a couple of like luxury handbags. Like I've bought them for special occasions, like my birthday, or when I graduated college, I bought myself a bag, nowhere near the price of a fucking Birkin bag. But I know that I have handbags. They're not something that every single person can afford. And I've had to talk to myself about like, why do I want this bag? Do I want this because it's a flex and I think it's cool? Or do I want it because I genuinely just really, really like the bag and I'm into this type of fashion? And I think the thing about the Birkin bag is that I think the sole reason people really love it and care about it so much because it's not a particularly interesting bag or like a high fashion bag. I think the reason people like and care about this bag so much is because of the flex that it has and because other people cannot afford it. It is like the epitome of a piece of clothing that just says like, I am wealthier than you. I can just blow 15K on this bag and it doesn't matter to me, and that makes me better than you. And I think that's why people subconsciously lust after these bags. And also uber rich people insist on having massive collections of Birkin bags. It's not because they're particularly good bags. It's literally just because other people can't just go out and get them. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Birkins, it's literally nothing to do with the bag itself, and it's everything to do with what the bag means. Not even for like the people who buy them, because again, I'm not like judging the people who buy them. I get people who get like swept up in this whole thing. I think what bothers me is that Hermes as a brand, everybody just like looks up to them and worships them as like the height of luxury fashion because of this Birkin bag. And I think the problem is that they've created a system where people have to spend quadruple the price in order to buy their bags resold, or they have to go into a store and beg someone who works there to allow them the honor of paying $15,000 for this designer handbag. And I think that's fucking nutty. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here, but let me know what you think down below. I'm very curious to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this topic, the topic of Birkin bags. I have no idea how this video is gonna turn out. I've never really done something like this before, but I hope you guys are interested in this topic. I know I had a lot of fun researching it and creating it, and I'm very curious to know. Like, I'm sure a lot of you are gonna be like, yeah, that's fucking nutty. You're gonna be on the same page as me, but I'm curious, like, is anybody watching this, have you bought a Birkin bag? And like, what were your genuine motivations for buying it? Other than just other people can't have it and it's like the biggest flex in the world. Which again, I'm not saying is like the worst thing ever. I'm not like judging people for it. I just think it's interesting the motivations we have behind buying luxury fashion, especially as it pertains to something like the Birkin. It is so exclusive and sought after. Anyway, I love you guys. If you heard popping throughout this video, I have my little popper. I'm very anxious today, so we're just popping. I love you guys so much. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, or just like, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and my social justice spotlight will all be linked down below, along with my podcast and vlog channel. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!
What?